Good day, my fellow scholars. The Conclave has called us to the gallows at Kirkwall to look deeper into the research and discoveries made by the Band of Three before their untimely demise. Before me are fellow theorists. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Happy Thoughts.
Hey, Happy. It's so nice to have you back with us and to propose this mystery for the Conclave to unravel.
I'm Emily from Age of Lore. My first time here. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. How long you've been playing Dragonage?
I have been playing Dragon Age. Well, I remember when Dragon Age Origins first came out, and I played it pretty much. I think it was December 2009. So I've been waiting for Dragon Age for a while, and I've had too much time on my hands and a lot of tinfoil at disposal.
Lovely, lovely.
Same.
I'm very happy both of you can join me. Happy, please lead us into the discussion.
Okay, the setup. The player is introduced to the Band of Three in Dragon Age 2 through a series of 12 codex entries. Collecting the codex entries is part of a side quest called the Enigma of Kirkwall, and finding all of them will earn players the Archaeologist achievement. 4 notes are available per act, and each one mentions that they were found by a, quote, curious marking, end quote, in different parts of Kirkwall. Because the notes are spread out, the player has to piece together the story over the course of the game. The self-titled Band of Three is looking for Tevinter lore in Kirkwall. Their investigations have them combing through Chantry administrative records, prowling Lowtown for resale relics, finding few answers, and stirring up more questions. This carries on for some time until they discover a hidden Tevinter chamber far below the city, apparently sequestered for arcane research and the source of the abundant Lowtown relics. Several discoveries follow. A large population of slaves is unaccounted for over the centuries. Kirkwall's city planning used runes for some of the layout. The mages who lived in Kirkwall are plagued by worrying trends of failed harrowings and blood mage converts. The band is attacked by Maleficarum, and V is injured, perhaps fatally so. Later, F dies at the center of it all. The final member of the Band of Three forswears their oaths and returns to confront, quote, the Forgotten One, or Demon, or whatever it is, end quote. There are no further notes. It is not until The World of Thetis Volume 2 that the identities of the Band of Three and their purpose are revealed. V is for Venel, a known Dalish apostate, presumed deceased. F is Felicita, no further details, confirmed deceased. Lastly, Brother Kirwin, part of the Chantry's clergy, presumed deceased. The Band of Three were charged with investigating the rampant reports of blood magic in Kirkwall, and to find if there was lore connecting the Forbidden Ones and the Forgotten Ones of Dalish myth. This duty was given by Seeker Calhale, who has personal motivations to root out Maleficarum. So the following is a list of what's not given in the game and the notes. The, quote, curious markings on each note is never depicted in-game, nor are the specific glyphs that were used to map out Kirkwall city planning. The note from Lord Seeker Thalric Aiden suggests that the Band of Three was conducting their investigations prior to the beginning of the Mage Templar War. When they began exactly is more nebulous. It's presumed that Thalic Edrain held the position of Lord Seeker before Seeker Lambert von Reeves. So that gives us like a 3-year window before 937 Dragon for the Band of Three started, but it didn't say specifically when in the game. It's unclear if Seeker Calhale received the information gathered by the Band of Three, or if Hawk intercepted all of the notes before the Seeker could collect them. The final codex also implies that Brother Kirwin destroyed the secrets that they had collected during their time in Kirkwall. When exactly Brother Kirwin goes to confront what exactly Brother Kirwin goes to confront at the end of the notes is not stated. Because the notes end, the players may conclude that the Chantry brother was unsuccessful. The following is speculation and questions. Because the Band of Three was specifically charged to find more information on the Forbidden Ones, and the Fell Grimoire is named in one of the codexes, it is possible that Brother Carowin went to confront Zebenkek. Not a forgotten one, but a forbidden one, as far as currently available lore is concerned. There is a discrepancy in the dates given for missing slaves in one codex entry, which states 203 slaves went missing in the Imperium's 312th year. However, according to the World of Thedas Volume 1, Kirkwall wasn't founded until negative 620 Ancient, which is equivalent to 575 TE, 263 years after the date referenced in the Enigma of Kirkwall Codex, assuming that they have equivalent calendar years. Either Kirkwall, at its founding called Emeris, was built much earlier than official record, or slaves were going missing even before the city was built. It has been suggested that Kirkwall might be the physical location for the Magister Sidereal chosen to enter the Fade. The timeline suggests an exhaustive undertaking of time alone. The Imperium came in force to seize the land from barbarian people. The city planning used streets to outline large glyphs. Large populations of slaves went missing over centuries. Secret live-in research chambers underground, extensive blood grooves built for large volumes of sanguine liquid collection, and the intentional thinning of the veil. All of this effort would exceed the average lifetime of a human magister. Could physically entering the Golden City of the Fade be the work of generations and not the ambitions of a small group, as the Chant of Light claims? Or did the Magister Sidereal already have a way of artificially extending their lives like Corypheus does? Or was Kirkwall built for a different purpose altogether?
Those are very, very good questions.
Which is why I suggested this topic.
Also, I want to point something out because I haven't noticed it before, but it says something like, it gives us a number of 203 slaves going missing in 1 year. And we have this impression of Kirkwall being like an actual hub for the slave trade, meaning that most slaves that would be at one point traded within the Empire would go through Kirkwall.
Correct.
These 203 slaves that disappeared, that's 10% of the volume of slaves going through Kirkwall in 1 year. And this is at the height of the Imperium. This is the Imperium before any sort of blight had rocked it and,
Correct.
utterly ravaged it. Yeah. So they were trading only 2,000 slaves per year when we can easily assume there's population of pretty easily millions, if not tens of millions, which, you'd think a considerable amount of them would be slaves. Well, I think that's a really small volume of slaves. That might be an issue of numbers. The writers may not have thought that through. Or it could be just the records are incomplete.
That's a fair point. My math actually went in the opposite direction, because if you lost, let's say, an average of 203 slaves over multiple centuries, that adds up to a lot of blood per year. But they don't have a way to preserve blood, so they would have had to have used it right away.
Yeah, and if they're using it for blood magic, presumably it would have to be at the same time, basically.
Right.
Like a sort of, I guess, mass sacrifice. It's really weird.
Yeah, unless they have some sort of blood battery, which sounds far grosser when I say it out loud.
They have that, I can't say it. This is that globe.
Grellum.
Thank you. Magrellum? Yeah.
Grellum, that the one that King Callan had. Theron was hung up in the comics with Alistair. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, King Merrick. Yes.
King Merrick, my bad.
Alistair's dad.
Yeah. That guy.
Well, you did point out a good thing. 10% could be a way to hide a theft, right? He's like, let's just take a small amount away from this bigger group that's supposed to go to the Imperium. And if, say, certain magisters are trying to conduct experiments in secret, but they need blood, they can't, take a large amount of slaves from
It's also like, it's probably also not one of the places where you'd want to live in Tevinter, right? So it's like kind of like this out of the way place. Nobody really talks about it. Yeah, it seems like it could be something like that.
To speak to your math for like the total population of slaves, they might only be counting the population of slaves that were traded, which might not be the total population, because if you keep a slave for their whole life, however long that might be, you wouldn't be traded that year. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know it makes sense, but like the thing is, like, slaves do end up having kids who presumably, if this slavery works in the Tevinter Imperium the way it works in the Roman Empire, the children of slaves, regardless, would be slaves, especially like female slaves. So you're not gonna raise like 5 or 6 slave kids. You're
When you
gonna
trade.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's
that math doesn't add up. Yeah.
So that means that slaves are going through the port, but also the opposite direction too, to Emerus, being traded off. For some reason, I keep thinking it's just one direction, like where the Imperium has captured a lot of barbarians and they traded them off. Or they basically just took them to Imperium and traded them there.
Yeah, but I think when we're talking about
they could trade within Tevinter's borders, like a hub for trade. For example, in Greece, Athens can trade with Sparta, but it would still be inside Greece.
Also, keep in mind, like, we're talking about like the ancient time when everything that is currently Orlais, Ferelden, Ravane, they were Tevinter.
True, very true. Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a huge landmass, and it actually makes sense. You just ship all the slaves to Kirkwall, and then you use it as like distribution. Anyone who wants to buy a slave knows that this is
the hub.
But that speaks to the timeline of when Emerus was the port versus whether slaves were traded even before Emerus was built.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see that if it's only because that note was from the Chantry records of slaves in Kirkwall. So one, it's interesting that the records go back before the Chantry, essentially, and two, like before the founding of Kirkwall. So why are you keeping documents unless the documents were shipped there from, like, Kirkwall was the capital trade hub for a while, but before that it was a different city. I can't recall which one. So unless they like transferred all of the documents from that city for records, I don't know why they would have documents from before Emerus was founded.
I might have a clue. But let me think if we should start going down to the other questions you have laid out for us. And I'll come back to that.
Okay.
So Happy brought up this question about Kirkwall made in the shape of a magical symbol, but we don't have the details of what that symbol is, nor the explanation of its function. So could it be an enchanting rune or something else?
Are we speculating now?
Yeah, speculate away.
I think it probably a dwarven rune because Tevinter uses dwarves for architecture. That would make sense to me. And we haven't gotten many like Tevinter, like thaumaturgical runes. It would be neat if we did in the next game. Like we learn a whole new ritual magic there.
I think there's a remark that Falasan made that in the Mask Empire where he criticizes the Tevinterers for like mindlessly copying Elven rune. So we might see a little bit more of that in Tevinter.
Yeah, speaking of Elven,
no.
Well, we have to think about the Elven Glyphs. And since Imperium did appropriated a lot of Elven magic in theory, that I actually went back to Dragon Age Inquisition and looked at their scattered glyphs. Again, it doesn't make any sense at all how they would build an entire city in these kind of design. There must be tons more that is not shown to us in game. So we're just going to have to speculate that that's one possibility. There is one Tevinter glyph, which is in the shape of a star or a pentagram. And that was scattered all around in the Dragon Age Inquisition game.
Like one of the graffitis?
I think it's on a map. I'll need to
I think
find
I've seen that on the ground. Do you remember the haunted mansion?
Mm-hmm.
I think where you like reforge the key in that room in the Emerald Graves haunted mansion area. There's like a glyph or something like that on the floor. I feel like I've seen that drawn in multiple places.
Yeah, it was even tacked on walls. But that's only one of Tevinter glyphs that I saw. And speaking of the pentagram, I was thinking about the number of tomes. The Forbidden Knowledge quests requires that we find 5 tomes to get to the original Fel Grimoire. And me and numbers, why specifically make 5 copies of the Fel Grimoire? So I just play with numbers. That's a 5-point star, and the Fel Grimoire being in the center, being the origin. So that makes a pentagram. And that could be a magical glyph in itself. Pentagram is made up of 2 triangles. And in our last Conclave discussion, we talk about triplicities and the laws of threes. And that kind of makes me think how we see a lot of triangles carved or etched in elven sculptures that maybe there's a play on that. I don't know. Very far-fetched theory on that.
It's interesting, though.
Oh, by the way, there's also the Tevinter glyph on the Grim Anatomy. So it's the back page that was burned. I basically overlapped the Tevinter glyph over that burnt page. And it, again, it's just, the designer saying, oh yeah, I'll just take this design and put it here and make it cool. It could be just that, right?
There's always that chance, but it's more fun to think they did it on purpose.
Thank you. We certainly have more fun speculating on it. Otherwise, we have nothing to speculate on.
I'm so ready for the Dragon Age TV show in December.
Yes. So the question I pose is, let's say it could be some rune or glyphs. They all serve a purpose. So I'm wondering which rune speaks to what they were trying to achieve there. Do you think that the Magisters were trying to channel power from the Fade? So would that be spirit runes, for instance, that they're trying to build the city around to really focus all their energy on reaching spirits in the Fade or trying to direct them? Or were they trying to speak to the old gods? Which means would the city be built in a magical symbol to resemble a dragon? Or were they trying to connect with the forbidden ones? That was hinted.
My sister had a really cool theory because I was personally on board with the Magisters breaking into the Fade, and the symbol was to aid in that. But she was like, if they're taking blood over years and years, could it be a prison like Corypheus's prison that had to be renewed with blood every year? So maybe they trapped something, like they summoned a demon and they kept it there, like the demon that's trapped in Sundermount, except, in a better prison.
Speaking of prison, we don't know where Dumont's prison was. So Sorry, go ahead.
They said that in the book The Calling, I believe, that the First Warden knows where all of the archdemons who have risen were, and that they know where the ones who have yet to be awakened are.
This is wonderful because it's coming back to what I wanted to say earlier.
Oh, good.
Casting a wide web. Well, the primeval Theg, deep below the Free Marches. When Hawk and friends went down there, they discovered 2 things. One obviously is the Red Lyrium idol, but one that isn't discussed a lot was that there's the Dumont's Claw, a sculpture in which Corypheus had it made and used to make sacrifices on. And this was back before he became Corythius. He was the high priest of Dumont. What is his original name?
Oh,
Tethius?
Sethius Amladaris.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Such tongue twisters.
there's only going to be more Latin in the next game.
Wonderful. So Scythius, as the high priest of Dumont, has sacrificed many of his slaves. And there was a memory recorded in the Fade that we can find in Dragon Age Inquisition that spoke of such. The Dumont's claw was found near the primeval Theg. And there was a lot of things near Kirkwall, right? Sundermount, the places where we also found the evil tomes. So there's this weird link whether, like your sister said, that these blood was feeding to a prison, a god prison, and that maybe unbeknownst to him really at that time, Corythius heard Dumont calling and was...
and that's why he went there and got captured by the Grey Warden, because he was going to Dumont?
Possibly, or kind of started worshipping there too, or making sacrifices there. I'm not really sure. Because I'm thinking about why is the Dumont claw sculpture was there.
Yeah.
And I think Emily brought this up where, Tevinter, even at the beginning of, what's that word? But they all coalesced together. United, thank you. To become the Imperium, they were trading with the dwarves. They have tons of lyrium, and the primeval Theg was known to be the house of...
Well, the primeval Theg didn't have a house because it, predated paragons. There were no paragon statues. But if you take Varric into Corypheus's prison, we find the scion of House Tethrus.
I looked it up yesterday. It did mention a very specific house.
But the primeval Theg would have been before the great houses. That's how old it was.
I was a bit surprised, but it did mention a name.
I was always under the impression that the primeval Theg was something the elves messed with at some point, because some of the art that we have of there is very elfy, very stereotypically elvish. We know what Tevinter statues look like. We know what dwarven statues look like, and the concept art for that place looks elfy.
Yeah. So I went back to Wiki. It says that the Valdecine Theg is an ancient Theg and the home of House Valdecine, and in present day it is known as the primeval Theg. So the Valdecine house was the primary provider of lyrium at that time. They must have dug really deep.
Yeah, I don't remember that house.
To me, that's quite interesting. If they, at that time, was the primary provider of lyrium, and Tevinter acquired a lot of lyrium, they must have worked with this house. And it makes me wonder if, say, Corythius or his followers, or the followers basically of the Seven Magisters, were trying to thin the veil to breach it to get to the Golden City. I wonder if they not only have to slowly steal slaves over time, but also having to work with the House of Valdecine on the side to say, hey, can you sell me some directly?
I think there's an alternate solution to why they were doing all that stuff in Kirkwall, and that's basically to thin the veil. We know that places of great suffering where we see a lot of death, one example that Solus gives is places where great battles take place, right? Those places tend to have thin veils. The veil is thin in those places, and in such places, we actually see circles being built. Circles are usually built where the veil is thin because, say what you will about what the Chantry does to the mages, but they definitely don't want to impair them that badly. So I think what one pretty logical solution to what Tevinter was trying to do, is like get a place where, we thin the veil so much we'll be able to like do great magical experiments and, breakthroughs and stuff like that.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're always trying to tap into the Fade for something. Let's move on to your next question, Happy, about the time when the Tevinter Imperium sent the 3 legions to Emerus, but never arrived.
Yes, that's a cool one. The first time I read it in game, I just thought, oh, that's a reference to the Lost Roman Legion, and then I moved on with my life. But it's like 3 legions is pretty big. Oh man, I looked up how big a legion was. For 3 of them to go missing is significant, though. 6,000 soldiers per legion. So if 3 legions went missing on the way from, I think it was the capital, so I'm going to say Minrathous to Kirkwall, like 18,000 soldiers just missing. That's kind of terrifying.
That's a small, well, it's a town going missing.
Yeah. Like, where did that many soldiers just poof?
Well, knowing that there's red Lyria underneath Free Marshes, I'm wondering if the dark spawns were slowly forming. Did they encounter dark spawns?
Oh. But that goes back to, like, when did they send the legions? Because were Darkspawn even a thing when they sent them? I'll need to find the...
Their numbers must have slowly grew.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, Tevinter was an empire for a long time. Kirkwall was around for a large number of years before and after the Blight. So, like, when Tevinter sent the legion is what's in question.
We actually have a pretty good time for this. So the text itself says, as Maphrat's armies topple the Imperium, they send 3 magisters and their legions here. So it's after the birth of Andraste, it's after the First Blight. It's possible that it's Darkspawn.
Okay. I'd be happy with that answer,
Yeah.
Deal.
It's scary still that Darkspawn can just yoink 18,000 people.
Yeah, but the Darkspawn have been amassing for longer than that, because way back, for those of you who don't skip the codexes and the deep roads, it talks about the Darkspawn showing up and how slowly they took over the Tigers before they actually showed up on the surface for them to, like, the humans to declare the First Blight. Like, our people went missing before then.
Yeah, even the dwarves said, what? The Magisters created the Darkspawns? No, we encountered them before then.
Yeah, which is extra scary.
Yeah.
Because it was the Chantry who claimed that the Magisters unleashed the Darkspawn. But if it was something else, like, what did it?
So Corypheus has very little reason to lie about it. I do think they found Blight in the Black City. It's super unclear. The dwarves saw Darkspawn before the Magisters went to the Black City, or if it happened after the Magisters went to the Black City, when, you would probably have, like, Darkspawn, like, grabbing a couple of dwarves that are doing, like, a trade mission or something like that, and building up their numbers, and then you see them, like, I don't know, 20, 30 years later, doing full-on assaults, attacking thugs, maybe doing raids on the surface, stuff like that.
Yeah. And the First Blight was supposed to be, like, 200 years long, too, so...
I hate to bring this up, but it's the elves. The elves encountered the dwarves before they encountered the humans. So there's some relationship between the dwarves and the elves. And if the elves did fuck things up by killing the Titans, well, the Blight could have happened during the ancient time of the elves.
I mean, we do have that codex about Andril that sort of describes her going crazy, and it says something like plague ate at her lands, which is a little bit similar with how the Fourth Blight is described in Last Flight, where like crops no longer grow, animals no longer reproduce, children born during Blight are like malformed and stuff like that. So there's some indication of that. There's a few codex entries in Trespasser that talk about the dwarves and the elves fighting, and the codex entries kind of abruptly end with elves sealing tunnels with magic and rock, and sort of
The
like
Elven
this commentary.
Their pride have unleashed could end us all. That one.
Yeah, and let this place be forgotten. And I think like that forgotten kind of calls out to the forgotten ones, and they're creatures who dwell in the void, and
Yeah, after we learn that Red Lyrium has the blight, that kind of casts the primeval Tig in a whole new light, because that means that whole Tig that's full of red lyrium had the blight from primeval times. We don't know how long the lyrium in the primeval Tig has been red. I will correct myself. So if it has been red for the whole time it's been a Tig, then the blight is really old. If the Tig got infected after the blight hit the deep roads, that's a different story.
Yeah, and well, I'm already swaying us all the way to the left. So with your question about the 3 legions, yeah, it is a good possibility that they might have encountered the darkspawns.
That makes sense. Still very scary. It's a large number of people to just go missing, lose to the blight.
The scary thing wouldn't be like if you say like something like 3 legions were sent and we got like some stragglers that came in and said like, oh, we were attacked by something. They purely disappeared off the face of the earth.
Right.
No survivors, no accounts of what happened to them. Just poof.
So last question. I'm going to combine these two. When did the band of 3 die? And did Kirkwall succeed in sealing back whatever they released?
I think it would be the better story if he accidentally let it out. Because he went in to kill it, but since he didn't emerge, the best case scenario for him would be if, they both died down there.
You correct me if I'm wrong. So based on what I understand the evil tomes are, is that it's a tome that would summon the forbidden ones.
I thought Zebenkek was trapped in that book. There's a thing where you can trap a demon in a book. So I think that's why Zebenkek was in Kirkwall, and then we let it out.
Yeah, what's her face? The Maleficarium did the same thing with the copies, but Zebenkek, I feel like she was the guardian of that film Grimoire. I don't know if who would specifically bind her to that, but the forbidden ones were exiled by the elven gods. They were not trapped like how Fen'Harel trapped the Forgotten Ones. So I don't think Kirkwall succeeded in releasing the Forgotten Ones.
I don't think he was trying to release them.
Yeah.
Well, he was sent to Kirkwall to see if there was any relationship between the Forgotten Ones and the Forbidden Ones, and his conclusions are never stated. It's just said he's going to go face a Forgotten One or a Forbidden One or whatever. That's why I use that quote specifically. Even he didn't know what he was fighting. So that implies that he didn't figure out anything about the relationship between the Forgotten Ones and the Forbidden Ones. Because he was still confused. That's what it implied to me.
So there's 2 things I would like to add. The codex entry that we get in the Virdathara, which kind of makes it sound a little bit like it's connected to the whole dwarves and elves fighting and the elves fucking something up. And the codex entry about the forbidden ones comes in and says they fled into the Fade, their abandoned form, and we're going to exile them. That's the first thing. The second thing, Imshel we encounter in Emprise de Lyon. The codex entries there name as Gardener for Red Lyrium and for the Red Templar abominations that we encounter around there, and even like the Red Lyrium giant. So he seems like rather proficient at getting Red Lyrium to flourish somehow. I would say less likely to be something about a war, but more likely to have the origin of the Forbidden Ones to be within like the beginnings of the Blight and that fuck up that happened after they killed the Titans.
Yeah, I could totally see that. He not only know how to grow red lyrium, he also know about the Illuvians, because in the Masked Empire, he was the one who gave the stone to Sir Michel de Chavannes to escape with Empress Celine and one of the Illuvians. It's like, if you release me from this binding circle, I'll give you this key.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Forbidden Ones definitely knows a lot and has, I would even say, almost equal power. Let's summarize everything we talked about.
That should be easy.
Yeah.
First question we address is like what kind of symbol we think Kirkwall was built around, and what we theorize could be so many things, depending on what the Magisters were trying to call out or call to.
Yes.
Yeah, we thought about some magical runes. There's one particular Tevinter glyph, which is the pentagram that also mimics some of the elven symbols that we come across sometimes. And then maybe Elven Glyphs. It's still a hard question. It's still very open-ended as to what the actual symbol would have looked like. But if we kind of loosely tie to all the blood being sacrificed and filtered down to a old god prison, maybe the rune is something relating to dragons. And then the timeline, we talked about when Emberus was built. If slaves were already taken before Emberus was built, then we're going back far. I think, did we say like at the unification of the Tevinter Imperium?
The Codex entries said the 312th year TE, and according to codexes we have about Kirkwall, Emberus was founded in 575 TE.
So we're suspecting that sacrifices were made there, at least were made in that area before they even built the port.
Unless records got like transferred to Kirkwall. That's the only thing I could think of to account for the discrepancy. Because they had to have a trading hub before Kirkwall was built.
It'd also be something like there was a trade there, right? And it was expanded at some point because they wanted to trade all the slaves through there.
Before Emberus was built, they said it was ruled by an Alamari barbarian tribe, so more like Stonebear Hold than the Tevinter Imperium. So they wouldn't have been a trade hub for Tevinter before Kirkwall was built, if all of that information is accurate.
Or the seven magisters and their temples did ask the Archon, say, hey, I need 10% of these slaves, and then ask for some lyrium, and then just hold it underground and conducted their rituals.
But that could fill up a different lore video.
Yeah, true.
Like, I have a whole heist theory for, like, who had what role in the heist.
We can definitely set that up. Our people will talk and set that up.
We'll do lunch.
And then about the Forgotten Ones and the Forbidden Ones. It's safe to say that the Band of Threes never concluded whether the Forbidden Ones and the Forgotten Ones are the same demons, and what they have to do with Kirkwall.
Yeah, their research project went off the rails. That's what I think.
I will likely have to do my little deep dive on the Forgotten Ones and the Forbidden Ones and their association. But I still feel that at the end, the Forbidden Ones might have been guardians, might have protected some secret. Because was it Solus who, or maybe it was in the wiki, that the Forgotten Ones were many and they are still locked away, while the Forbidden Ones were only 4.
I think that's the implication, yes, that there were specifically 4 Forbidden Ones, and they're all named, but we don't know how many Forgotten Ones they were because, we forgot.
The elves forgot. The Dalish forgot.
It's like when you're exiled from Orzammar and you're taken off of the Wall of Memories. Like, I always interpret the Forgotten Ones as literally our history books forgot you because we erased you from them.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
There may be more that have not been named.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of parallels. Go ahead. Is there more you want to add to this? Is there anything else you can think of?
I've worked very hard to come up with all of these questions.
Did we answer all your questions, Happy?
I've had a lot of fun with this discussion. I hope you have too.
Lots. I love it.
Definitely.
This has been an awesome session.
Thank you for having me on despite like the time difference.
Oh no, totally happy.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem. Happy, you and I need to talk to come up with the next session. The heist.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.